So today it is an absolute pleasure for me to be joined by Hannah at Futrli and Adrian at Receipt Bank. Hello and welcome.
Hey, hello, great to be with you.
Excellent. So before we dive into this conversation about real-time data getting real, it'd be really good to get a bit of background on each of you. So Hannah, perhaps you can give us a bit of background on yourself. Who is Hannah?
Who is Hannah? Gosh, isn't that the eternal question that we're all asking? No. So Hannah Dawson, CEO and founder of Futrli. Futrli seeks to help small business owners and the accountants that support them make better decisions. How do we do that? By helping to predict their cash flow and actions that they can take to basically help them sleep at night. Very, very corny line there, but that's the point. That's what we're doing. So we're evolving into more of a prediction platform for all things small business. My background's small businesses. I'm not an accountant by trade. Bought a pub when I was 26 in Devon, so hospitality was my background, and then find myself here through a very, very interesting path. But absolutely understand. This webinar is kind of really dear to my heart because really understand that, I've experienced things in the past where data has really caused problems and, the wrong data, etc. So, thrilled to be here with Adrian talking about our partnership.
Brilliant. Well, we'll dive into that a little bit more because I'm sure the viewers would love to know a little bit about your journey and what led you, first of all, to building Futrli, and I guess the passion that comes with it as well. Adrian, how about yourself?
So I'm the chief exec at Receipt Bank. So we're a business that really helps accountants to provide a better service to their small business clients. And we do it by solving probably what's the single biggest pain point for any accountant serving small businesses, which is how do you get all that information out of all your clients, digitized, categorized in a form that everyone can understand. And basically Receipt Bank is a brilliant way to do that. So as an accountant, you'll save a ton of time by doing it. You'll be able to help your people to serve more clients and grow your accounting practice faster. But I think even more importantly, it means that you're getting the information from your clients in real time. And if you've got information about what's actually happening now, you can provide far more relevant services. So we like to talk about, let's help accountants be radically relevant to their small business clients. So instead of just doing the tax return once a quarter, you're actually able to help them day to day.
Fantastic, radically relevant. I love it. And something that all accountants should be striving for. So before I dive in, just a brief comment about why I guess I'm here. So for those who don't know me, I'm Carl Reeder, joint chair at D&T, which is an award-winning accountancy practice. So yes, I'm going to be asking those difficult questions that any accountants on the webinar will want to be asked. I've also gone to my team, so we've got some really picky ones, I'm afraid, guys. I also serve as head of accounting for Europe, Middle East and Africa for Practice Ignition. I'm chair of the practitioners panel at ACCA, and I've written a couple of small business books as well. So I'm going to try to come at this from both sitting on the fence of both the accountancy world, but also the small business world. So Hannah, let's dive a little bit deeper into your story because you teased us. Yeah, you really did tease us with there was a bit of a windy path along the way. Do you care to share a little bit more about that?
Yeah, sure. So background was hospitality, working in restaurants in Glasgow, bought a pub in Devon, and got given a copy of Sage 50, and I'm going to name them, desktop, back in the day. And this is 2003, so it's quite a long time ago when dial-up was a thing, and had to learn. It was one of those, at that time, the accounting small business relationship was very different to what we find, today, or what we're trying to strive for today.
Sure.
And I saw my accountant once a year. That's kind of what happened. And within the first couple of quarters, I had taught myself forecasting and what to do in Excel and all of those sorts of things. The onerous job of extracting actual data out, but you're always running at a 6 to 8 week time lag. You know, if you think about a month-end process, and if we just bring back that real-time data and why it's, you know, just that core concept and what it is and why, because I think it's kind of been forgotten about. You know, in that system, you know, you have to close off your month end. So by the time you've actually extracted all of that information out, you've then put it into your spreadsheets, you've updated everything that you need to from the actuals and the balances and you're actually looking at, you know, things that have happened potentially 6, 8 weeks ago. Well, you know, reference that back to hospitality. For any business, that's bad. In hospitality, that's the whole school's summer holidays. Sure. So if suppliers put their prices up, something's happened at the beginning of that time period, then, you know, your whole profitability could have been you know, the menu that you've created, for instance, could be out the window, and the money that you think that you and your family are going to be able to take your holiday with in the October break will not happen, because, you know, you've just not made that money. So that's my big pain point, was that within that first 6 months, I didn't account for VAT properly in my forecasts and my costings, and had a very large tax bill came through the envelope unannounced and unprepared for. That nearly put us out of business. I had a 1-year-old at the time. We lived above. It wasn't just my business, it was my home as well. And family bailed me out. I was really, really lucky that I was I was in a position that could happen. They have been paid back. You know.
And that was all down to a lack of up-to-date data.
Clarity around data and being able to make the right decisions about, you know, so of course you then overextend yourself thinking that you've got money in the bank that should be allocated to something else. That problem has not gone away. It's still here absolutely today, and it's something that small businesses aren't asking themselves, oh, I need to think about my cash flow. They're thinking, do I have enough money to pay for payroll? You know, is there enough money for VAT? Can I launch? You know, so all of those questions happen, and it's the proliferation of that we want this end-to-end process to be really, really super clear. Get the data right. You've got your accounting package in the middle, which then, of course, we then pull from. And so there's then a point to doing it. So, of course, accountants understand, because they have jobs to do, you know, and jobs to be done. One of those things potentially is bookkeeping. From a small business owner's perspective, a lot of people will put that into the, oh, God, I don't, you know, why bother? This is just an onerous task that has no point to it. So if we can help through education and just helping the customer journey understand, this is what happens, and you're going to make better decisions. That's the whole point about what we're trying to do. And hopefully then people won't experience the pain that I experienced in the past.
Fantastic. And Adrian, would you be happy to share a little bit about your journey to Receipt Bank? So
of course.
Who is Adrian pre-Receipt Bank?
Yeah, so pre-Receipt Bank, I'm all about tech and actually consumer-facing technology businesses. So my first tech company I joined was way back 20 years ago, at the beginning, or right at the end actually, of the dot-com boom. I joined Ask Jeeves.
Okay, yeah, I remember it well.
It's amazing how little used the product is these days, but how well recognized the brand still is. Somehow that one really caught on. We had as you can imagine, incredibly tough time competing against Google. And I basically, after a couple of years, thought, if you can't beat them, join them. So I went to the US and I joined Google in Mountain View in California in 2004, which was the year of the Google IPO. And that was definitely the most formative professional experience of my lifetime. Just 6 years working in Google, from when it was reasonably small to, you know, when it was, I stayed until 2010, when we were about 40,000 people globally. Of course, now it's hundreds of thousands, but it was an extraordinary period of growth, and, you know, taught me all kinds of things. But one of the big things that I was passionate about at Google was the fact that we were democratizing success for small businesses. So, you know, it was possible through Google AdWords and through Google AdSense for a small business owner to do marketing of a sophistication that had only ever been possible previously for larger companies. And it's that idea of sort of democratizing things, making it possible through technology for the little companies to do as well as the big companies, that's really, really appealing to me. I joined, the other big thing at Google was the cloud, of course. You know, Google used cloud computing everywhere. It was just, in our blood at Google that everything was in the cloud. So I left Google in 2010 because there was this music company, Spotify, which was putting music into the cloud. And it was just completely obvious to me that the cloud was the future of music, and fiddling around with downloads and linking
it's
devices through a
amazing
cable.
With hindsight, isn't it, Adrian? It's amazing.
Yeah.
The fact that if a single was released at the time, back when we used to call them singles, but there was a million different versions of the same file floating around.
It was nuts, wasn't it? It was absolutely nuts. So it was kind of obvious to me coming out of Google that music was just obviously gonna do that. So I joined Spotify, and I hadn't been there very long when I got a call about a job at a company that I had heard of, but was little known at the time, called Just Eat. And it seemed a crazy idea to sort of go from this incredibly successful music startup, with celebrities coming to our company parties, and it was quite a glamorous place to be in a sense. Going from that, we had Demi Moore and Ashton Kutcher drop by the office one afternoon. It was a great place to work in many ways. So going from that to selling kebabs online, it wasn't like an obvious move. But what really attracted me to Just Eat was partly the team, and partly the fact that we were again democratizing something. We were helping your average kebab shop owner or Chinese restaurant owner to be successful in the digital age. So I stayed there for 7 years, and by the time I left, we were a FTSE 100 company. And what really got me excited about it, it wasn't so much the takeaway, although I love a kebab as much as the next person. It was the fact that we were paying about £3 billion a year into the bank accounts of entrepreneurs. So, small businesses, small restaurant owners, we were helping them to succeed against the likes of, Domino's and Pizza Hut with their big marketing budgets and technology and all the rest. So that was brilliant. And what excited me after that about Receipt Bank was actually a similar idea that, if you're a big company, you've got a finance team, you've got a CFO, you can afford people to spend a lot of time figuring out what's going on with your money. But if you're my kebab shop owner at Just Eat, you literally don't know. Hannah talked about how challenging it was in the hospitality industry to get your head around this stuff. You really don't know what's going on. Are you going to run out of cash next week? There's so much to keep track of, with all your bills to pay, and all your incoming revenue being tough to predict. It's really, really tricky. And basically what I saw at Receipt Bank was, instead of serving a sort of subset of small businesses, which is delivery restaurants, here's a product that's actually going to help any small business on the planet, but do it in a way that actually works by helping the accountants to do a lot more. So, the way we look at it is we're backing the people behind small businesses. We're backing the people whose advice and services can actually transform the success of a small business owner. And basically my conviction, and I say this as someone who's worked in tech for 20 years, is if you want to change the behavior of the Chinese restaurant owner or the beautician or the plumber or whatever it might be, the way to do it isn't a push notification or a graph. It's a human being, it's a person with some skills who they trust, who's going to suggest that they do something different. And if we can be the company, if Receipt Bank can be the company that really helps these accountants to do that, to be radically relevant, as I said, to their small business clients, we will have made a massive difference to the world. So that's what gets me excited about this.
Fantastic. And it's great to hear about your experience as well, because whilst Google and Just Eat in particular seem like very large businesses that are almost out of touch, I guess, for a lot of the attendees on this webinar, actually their core customer is the same as Receipt Bank, as you say, and they are data-led businesses as well, no doubt with real-time data. So we are moving into, I guess, where we discuss what actually is real-time data. And on the face of it, it's very simple. Hannah, you gave a very real-life example of what real-time data isn't, and the fact that a meeting once a year to have retrospective information isn't real-time data. Adrian, what would your definition, if you were to encapsulate real-time data into one or two sentences, how would you encapsulate what it is and what the benefits are?
Yeah, I would say it's about what's useful for decisions that you need to make today, what's useful for decisions that you need to make now. So, compliance, doing a tax return, I call it like financial archaeology. It's looking at the way the world used to be, but it's not telling you what you want to know is, should I hire an extra member of staff? Can I afford the rent that I'm paying? Should I pay this supplier now, or can I afford to wait until next week? What's my income likely to be next week, given previous trends? These are the sorts of things you need to know to actually guide decision making decisions that you're making today. And the great thing that we do at Receipt Bank is we take all this information in that isn't just stuff that you paid already. It's stuff that you haven't paid yet. It's your invoices, not just your receipts. And we're capturing that on an app. We put an app on the phone of the small business owner to make it dead easy for them to submit that stuff in real time. So as an accountant, instead of getting the box of receipts on your table every month, or the plastic bag shoved through your letterbox every quarter, or whatever it might be, from your clients, you're suddenly getting stuff on a daily basis, and that's what I call real time.
Sure. So Hannah, I'm going to back to you now, and I guess through this question I'm going to address one of the elephants in the room. If you cast your mind back to where you were, let's say 10, 15 years ago, where you had your small business and you were dealing with your accountant once a year, unfortunately, there's a truth that I believe we need to acknowledge, but many accountants still have that relationship with their clients and still have a reactive relationship. How would real-time data have changed how you approached your tax position? Would there be any difference if this technology had been available back then?
Without question. I was probably the UK's one of the very early zero users. I think there was about 15,000 users at the time, and it genuinely changed my life. It was this revolutionary moment where I went, oh my God, I can do bank recs like this, and I can do it on my coffee and on my app on my phone and all of those things. I think what accountants also have to understand is that they cannot underestimate the value of this. And that is actually what a client will value. They don't value the compliance work at all. It's a necessary evil that has to be done. That's why it's called compliance. But what they do value is either knowing that they're okay or they're not, and what can we do about it? So, I think that there's a massive hubbub around advisory and and it's an elephant in the room in itself. In fact, I think it's been made into something that actually all it is help at that time and point, and being proactive and just helping small businesses understand where they are today and also where it looks like they're headed. Because, the real-time data is not just about making today's decisions. Real-time data then feeds into things like prediction engines, at our end, that then can go, okay, based upon what's happening and the behaviors of your business today, whether that's how often it's taking a customer to pay you, whether that's how often, you're paying your suppliers, volumes, all of those things will then be, fed into our machine, and then give that small business some guidance. Now, you're right, Adrian. What they then want is a human to go, yay or nay, or have you considered X, Y, Z? Or I've got another client where this is working really well with them, and so on and so forth. That's the value. That's what I think. We've got so many small business owners who would really love that. We've got so many accountants here who could provide that service, and it's just making them enmesh and do it in a really simple manner. And I think that one of the things that's unfortunately happened with the explosion of cloud technology around the accounting industry is that there are so many apps, there's so much choice, that so many of our accounting firms have then become software, vendors, and that
Absolutely.
is not what this is about.
And this is certainly something we're going to come on to later, I guess, Hannah, is about where the input from the accountant is truly valuable. And what can they bring to the party on this as well. But before we do that, I'd like to explore just a little bit deeper within your own businesses, if that's okay. So Adrian, if we touch on Receipt Bank to begin with, how do you use data to drive your own business?
Well, we use it all the time. I mean, it's in our lifeblood. I mean, if I think of important decisions that we need to make in the company, we're a very international business, so we need to decide about resource allocation, across UK, Australia, US, Canada, South Africa, France, and there's usually the situation is you've got too many good things that you can be doing. So a lot of people have a lot of good ideas, but the reality is you can't fund them all. So I think one of the fundamental uses of data for us is evaluating competing ideas about good ideas. It's easy to dismiss bad ideas because they're bad ideas. But the hard thing is, when you've got 10 good ideas, but you can only afford to do 3 of them, which 3 are you actually going to pick? And that's where you can't really do it just by thinking about stuff. You've got to look at numbers, and the more current numbers are, the more up-to-date numbers are, particularly in this time when the world is changing under our feet, right? With COVID, there's no point looking at last year's data or 6 months ago's data. You're not going to make very good decisions unless you're looking at stuff that's up to date.
Sure. And Hannah, if we take Futrli, I'm presuming, but please correct me if this is an incorrect assumption, that you're not just using data to keep track of your VAT bills anymore. What other ways are you using data at Futrli?
Oh gosh, I mean, the financial information is one piece of the puzzle for any business, right?
Yes.
I think the non-financial data is equally as important, and often it's the lead indicator so it's the beginning of a journey. Once it's in the P&L and balance sheet, it's happened. It's something that's already happened, right? So certainly on our roadmap and where we're going is to actually democratize. I'm stealing Adrian's word.
You are.
Democratize, that from a small business perspective across the board, because if we look at Facebook's what profits, I think, or revenues, 50% of it's from small businesses today. Well, it's really easy to go and boost that post, isn't it? Is it actually making you any money? So things like that, marketing funnels, all of those things, making those journeys much more simple, so that the money, because everything still comes down to cash at the end of the day, with a business. But that money is being spent wisely, and those decisions, like you said, Adrian, are the evaluation can happen. You can play and test your own assumptions about your business, but equally trying to make data less scary, because it's, I'm sure when if you speak to your clients, Carl, you'll find that a lot of them, I'm not into the numbers. It'll be something that we hear from accountants about.
Let me share an admission with you, Hannah. It's been about 10 years since I've been on the tools. I'm not into the numbers either.
But that's the case, right? Some people have got numbers fear or paralysis.
Yes.
And so the interpretation and presentation of things into real words, real sentences, not just charts, because it's a bit of a so what, right? Even things like dashboards are fantastic if the dashboard's presenting the thing that you need to look at. But if there's a fire burning in the corner and it's not on the dashboard, then the fire is going to continue to burn.
So I guess just taking a question that I believe might be in the minds of some accountants listening, certainly not all, but they would have I guess a fair argument if they have an avatar of a client in their mind. Let's say, we've spoken about hospitality and small quick service restaurants. Let's say they've got a kebab shop as a client, and that kebab shop has always known how well their business is doing by footfall in the shop and cash in the bank. They've always run very much on a gut feel. Is the till full at the end of the night or not? Practically speaking, and I'm going to ask both of you to put on advisor hats now. How would you see that the model advisor would be advising these clients based on having this real-time data?
Well, I know a thing or two about kebab shops. So
absolutely, I've teed you up nicely here.
You've chosen my specialist subject on Mastermind. Having spent, I've literally spent countless hours of my life in kebab shops.
But that was nothing to do with Just Eat.
I've worked in kebab shops. I've eaten far too much of what they produce. So what I would say is a few things. And if there are any kebab shop owners listening, then I hope you find this useful. So I would say look at your revenues to start with, and don't assume that they're going to be the same every week. You know, your industry is massively seasonal, and within a month there's a really significant payday cycle. So you'll see orders climbing up quite a bit towards the end of the month when people get paid, and dipping towards the beginning of the month. And certain months of the year, you know, the summer, for example, is much quieter than sort of January, November. So there's huge seasonality both, you know, between months and within the months. Secondly, on the revenue side, I would say look at delivery. If you're just judging your revenue by footfall, you're missing probably the most important single trend in your industry at the moment, which is delivery. And you should be looking at you know, all the various delivery platforms out there and what revenue share you're getting from them. So there's a lot you can do on the revenue side. And then in terms of cost, I would say look at your staffing levels. Do you have are your people actually fully employed all the time, or you know, could you maybe get away with fewer people on certain quiet days of the week? Like a Tuesday, for example, is usually the quietest night for a kebab shop. And then finally, I would look at procurement and your supplies, and you know, who do you get them from? And are you sure that, you know, if you're going to Booker, are you sure that that's the best supplier? Because there are specialist suppliers within the kebab trade that might be able to get you a better deal.
And Hannah, anything you'd like to add to that?
I think Adrian's done a marvellous job. I think anybody in hospitality, thank you for choosing that background. You know, if you were I might not be as vocal, but you know, as an advisor for anything, I'd be getting the basics right. So you know, the process is right first, but even things down to the chart of accounts, making sure that they can get enough granularity and reporting back out of it to be able to control the controllables. Because in an industry like that, you know, you're talking about products with really small margin. So have you played with pricing? You know, are you costing things? Have you ensured that you've put your VAT in the right places, and so on and so forth? And then it's that playing with, it's the so what. So all of the examples that Adrian's talked about, what I want to be able to do as an advisor and say, if we do this in a scenario modeling exercise, if we do this, this is the net outcome based upon, you know, trading as it was in the last 12 months. If, you know, if COVID's happened, so we've had, you know, our Predict engine, which is coming, Predicts will be launched very, very shortly. We've been looking at a load of data from our small businesses and our test environments where, of course, COVID's impacted. Well, if a prediction engine doesn't take that into consideration, you know, very, very intelligently, well, we're going to be forecasting that's going to happen next year. Well, of course, that's not the case. So it's understanding with your clients how each one of the pieces of the puzzle that they can control, what impact that will have positively or negatively if they do. And then that so what piece is done. It's done. You understand why the numbers are important, because until that happens, it's just data. Right?
Absolutely. And the reality of this stuff that we've been talking about, you know, the last 5 minutes would have been teaching many on this call how to suck eggs. But for some others, it would be conversations that they wouldn't have necessarily had with their clients, either due to a fear of providing that information or a lack of real-time data. So,
sorry to interrupt, Carl. It's one of those things I find really, really interesting, that often the data is the thing, or the data preparation and creation is the thing that's valued by the accounting industry. That's not what's valued by the small business. It's what's done with it is valued by the small business. So you see banks speeding up the process and making you really efficient. Cloud accounting tools making you really efficient gives you more time to then give you the value piece back, and then, you know, have those conversations that will impact somebody's life and someone's family, because that's
absolutely right. You know, I was quoted on LinkedIn yesterday as saying that you know, a great advisor with average tech would be far better than an average advisor with great tech.
Completely.
Because tech cannot replace the eyes and the ears, and finding the answers beneath the answers. Yeah, really peeling away the layers of the onion and getting to the nub of it. But I guess there's a challenge, and I would like to put it back to both of you, that there is perhaps a lack of education amongst, so perhaps a fear and lack of education amongst accountants, and in turn a lack of awareness of this stuff for small businesses. What kind of education could be out there? What kind of education will you both be providing to small businesses in general to help them understand the importance of this?
So we at Receipt Bank have a community called Orange Select, which is something that actually in this COVID time we've thrown open to. It's usually just for our customers. We've actually thrown it open to all accountants now can sign up, even if you're not a Receipt Bank customer today. And what we find is the best people for accountants to learn from are actually their peers, who are already doing a great job of some of the things we've been talking about. So what we're really keen to do, it's not that, we Receipt Bank are the experts at how to deliver advisory services as an accountant, but we do have an incredible platform because we work with about 10,000 accounting firms around the world. We have about 50,000 individual accountants who are users of Receipt Bank, and they've got between them about 400,000 small business clients. So we've got an incredible platform to bring people together and share knowledge. And we've got an incredible network of experts within Receipt Bank. So I think that's the most important single thing that we can do.
Sure. And Hannah, from Futrli's perspective, how will you be educating the two markets, I guess, accountants and the end business owners,
Sure,
of the benefits of this real-time data?
So, I think there's two pieces of the puzzle. Obviously, the partnership itself, understanding how to have a really efficient end-to-end process. I think sometimes, it's just easier to strip away the research that you have to do. So, we'll be ensuring that we can do that through video series and blogs and so on and so forth. So there will actually be real educational material to say, look, this is what the perfect journey would look like, even for things like client onboarding. I think that's something, and what do you say in the first meeting? It's all of those soft skills pieces that are really important. We also have got a brand new community that we've just launched called Peer, funnily enough, because it's not just for accountants, but it is for our small business community as well. And again, it has, it's got different groups within it for each of industry verticals, so that, for a digital marketing agency and another creative agency, you've got a very different subset of problems to hospitality, for instance, so they can interact there and discuss their specific industry problems. However, there are greater problems such as real-time data, cash flow, all of those sorts of things that affect every single business. So, we have public groups for that, and that's where our accountants are going in and commenting and helping the small businesses that have questions. But I do think that this opportunity that we have between the two of us to take the lead and say, look, if you want to do this quickly, efficiently, and to get the quickest and best return for you and the effort that you put in, as well as to get the best output and result for the small business, that's where the partnership comes in, and ensuring that actually real tangible educational material is put together to ensure that happens.
Absolutely. And I think that, certainly in the past, we've referred to that profile of an accountant having once a year meetings about once a year data. Whilst that is still happening, we do need to acknowledge that with the coronavirus crisis, many accountants have stepped up almost inadvertently to become advisors. So hopefully this is something that is adopted far more widespread within the industry. But I do want to come now to one of the key challenges that might be in the minds of accountants right now. That's the risks around the data. And in particular, accountants will always think of where it could go wrong and where there might be a problem on a certain client. And that challenge is dirty data, obviously. So in terms of that risk, how do accountants protect themselves and their clients against the risk of bad inputs into the system leading to bad outputs? So Adrian, I think given that you're at the input end, probably worth to start with you on that.
Yeah, thank you. I mean, I am biased, of course, but I'd say a great first step is to use Receipt Bank, and taking my biased hat off, there are actually good reasons for that. We process data to a level of like 99% accuracy, which is more than a single human being is capable of. So you immediately, by using the product, get yourself better accuracy and more timely data, because we're putting the tool in the hands of your clients to submit the data so much more easily. So I think by freeing up time from the most mundane, tedious pieces of it, like keying in information and chasing clients for information in the first place, by automating all of that, we free up your time to make sure that you've got other pieces of the inputs right, like, you know, making sure you're really categorizing everything correctly, and thinking through any other aspect, any other types of information that you might need, and being able to check on any anomalies that you're spotting between what's come in now versus what came in previous periods.
Sure.
So I think, you know, we've spent the last 9 years at Receipt Bank building this product and iterating it, getting it better and better and better. And, you know, as I said at the beginning, this data in is actually the biggest single pain point that accountants have. So I think it's really critical to use a tool like Receipt Bank to make the most of it.
Absolutely. And Hannah, now from the output perspective, so we've got the data 99.9% accurate. Clearly there's a 0.1% that accountants will grip onto, but that is human error as well. So Adrian, I'm not picking up on that. But in terms of Futrli, what input is there from the software to help ensure the integrity at the output end? Is there any intelligent technology monitoring what's going on?
Yeah, well, that's the whole point of the prediction piece, right? So first of all, any anomalies being flagged, you know, this is something's just gone up, is that right? You know, and actually prompting you to changing the behavior to go and check. So if that 1%, or if it was, you know, someone not using Receipt Bank and they've keyed in an extra zero somewhere, well, first of all, they've got to go through a bank reconciliation process, which will be prompting, and we're driving the behaviors to make sure that happens, because anything from a prediction perspective has to happen post that. You know, it has to be up to date. So this real-time piece is two parts. It's the data entry and automating that, so you don't need to. The activity that you do need to undertake is daily bank recs. You absolutely should be doing that. And we know we've got some great advisory firms who have that as part of their process. Why? Because the output and the so now what piece, which is where we sit, is then so much more valuable. But we will be prompting that behavior to go and do that thing, because this information has just come in and flagging, you know, anomalous potential.
So Hannah, I just need to play devil's advocate here. Daily bank recs. Yeah. There will be a small subset of accountants listening in, seeing that as a great idea. There will be a very large proportion seeing that as multiplying their work by 200 times. How realistic is it that business owners will pay for accountants to do daily bank recs?
If there's a so now what, high. You know, if it means that you're actually going to be able to afford a family holiday at the end of it, really high. It depends on how it's delivered. You know, like you said, if something's delivered in a really poor message, yeah, no wonder. And by the way, we're going to do this daily bank bookkeeping, and you know, there's no reason why around it. But I also would say bookkeeping takes the same amount of time whether you're doing it at the end of the month or if you know. Matching those things still take the same amount of time. So whether you do it daily, whether you do it weekly, whether you do it monthly, if you extrapolate it out, if that's a service that you're offering, it's still taking the same amount of time. So, but again, using the tools, setting up bank rules, all of those things, it absolutely can be made much, much quicker. And if the output then saves businesses, because that's the point. This is all about saving your clients, giving them an opportunity to grow, making sure that you have an absolutely trusted and valued relationship with them, and you're not just seen as a cost, because that unfortunately is where those people who, you know, push back and go, well, I don't want to provide that service. Okay, fine, someone else is going to then. That's where this new breed and this relevancy needs to really be spawned from, because that's where you can then truly help. And whether that's, you know, helping businesses who are struggling or helping businesses who are doing really well maximize things that they haven't thought of, it's at both ends of the spectrum. But without the data being right and going through some processes which may have to change, guess what? The world's a changing, you know, and those daily bank recs then absolutely will make sure that, you know, your portfolio is protected, and surely that's something that you want.
Sure. So I guess, but one last question I've got is around business owners potentially looking to rely on these tools as a virtual accountant. Is that a possibility? Do you see that being a benefit for the small business community, a risk? And if it is a risk, how would you mitigate against that?
Look, I'll take that, and then Adrian can make it sound nicer afterwards. I think. But I think for accounting firms that don't move with the times, they are at risk. I genuinely believe that, and I think also so they should be, because I mean, look at the crisis situation now. That we also know that with our original advisor products, typically 10% of a portfolio are getting advisory work like management accounting and board packs. Well, that's completely irrelevant for 90% of small businesses. So if they're then going without any help apart from compliance, we've got a lot of businesses at risk. Well, guess what? That stacks up with the 50% of small businesses failing by year 5, which hasn't changed despite the tech in the marketplace. So, I think as an accounting firm, you have to be completely relevant. You have to look at, if I was a business owner, what kind of service would I want from myself, and just take a step back. And so if there are tweaks that need to be made to process to get a much bigger output across a greater swathe of your portfolio, but potentially through all of the time savings and the automations that, are provided by ourselves, as well as, of course, Receipt Bank and the likes of QBO, Xero, et cetera, that, it shouldn't be as much of a fearful thing to take a step to take.
Sure. And Adrian?
Yeah, so I think I actually wouldn't be worried about automation if I was an accountant, in the sense that I think the most important commodities that we're dealing with here are trust and understanding. And I think when it comes to small business owners, it's almost impossible to automate trust and understanding. But what technology does do is it creates an extraordinary opportunity for accountants to be able to do more. So, I would look at technology very, very positively if I was an accountant, as, wow, look what is now possible for a small business client that would never have been possible for a client with that kind of budget in the past. Thanks to technology, thanks to the easy availability of so much data, it is actually possible to deliver a level of service to small business clients now that was never possible before. And because it's a human being involved, it's possible to generate that level of trust and understanding to change their behavior and ultimately help them perform better.
Sure. And I guess one question on the tools that can be used for automation, and again, I guess it's another elephant in the room, the ledger packages are building in.
Getting quite crowded, all these elephants around.
Oh, hey, I've got to ask for questions, haven't I? The ledger packages are building in OCR at one end and basic forecasting at the other. We are coming towards the end of this webinar, so could I ask each of you just for a statement of why this partnership versus using an all-in-one package?
From the end perspective, looking at the basic cash flow, I know Xero's got their new cash flow 90-day projection tool. It's one piece of the puzzle for small business, right? It's a very important piece of the puzzle, but being able to look at when you're paying your tax, or being able to track your revenue, being able to look at your profitability, being able to test ideas out and scenario plan, and be able to, with those trusted advisor conversations that we all want and would love to see happening more and more of, you can't do that in those systems. And so, and I also, it's the ability really to extend your capabilities. Those all-in-ones are not necessarily going to be as robust enough as even the most basic of small businesses would require.
Fantastic. And Adrian?
Well, I think the most basic point is, Receipt Bank is by far the best product in the market at what it does. And, don't take my word for it. I'm the CEO. Go and look at what customers say. Look at the App Store rating. Look at the Google Play rating. This product is actually rated better than Spotify. The last company I worked for, or company I worked for 10 years ago, which is almost unheard of in a sort of B2B technology product, and there isn't, rival products are rated sort of half or less. So basically, customers, this isn't like some discretionary purchase. This is like a professional tool for accountants to use every day of their life. And I would say give your staff the best possible tools to do their job.
Fantastic. So Hannah, Adrian, thank you so much. Perhaps most importantly, for giving me permission to ask the questions that accountants want answering rather than a promo pitch. Where can the community find out more about this?
So both of us have got shared pages on each other's websites, so futrli.com/receiptbank and vice versa. And I know that there'll be follow-up information that we'll be sending too.
Fantastic.
And the best with me is just drop me a note, adrian@receipt-bank.com.
Fantastic.
But
you're not Adrian at futrli.com.
No, I'm not. Although, Adrian will forward this one, I'm sure.
Perfect. So both of you, thank you so much for your time today. Any closing messages that you would like to share with the audience?
Well, just that we hope that you guys get on board and just let us know what we need to do to help you through this journey, because, the more of you that tell us that, the more we can streamline, the more that we can make sure that onboarding you through end to end is absolutely seamless.
Yeah, and I think the last word for me would just be, we want to help you through this very difficult time. It's a very tough time for small businesses all around the world. It's a very tough time for the people who advise and help them. And we want to help you. We're doing what we can, but I'm sure there's more we can be doing. And we'd love to hear more from you about what that might look like.
Fantastic. Thank you both.
Thanks, Carl.
Thank you.